Hey guys, how's it going? This is Hero, and today I'm going to be discussing the back-to-back transits of the new moon, followed by the moon being into debilitation. Okay, now, why is this transit important? One, the fact that it's a new moon and debility back-to-back, and then two, the new moon, it occurs in Libra, which is Sun's debilitation sign. So that Sun is giving off extra negative energy than usual. Also, Mars is within 10 degrees conjunct behind Sun. So it's also throwing its hot negative energy at the moon as the moon is getting closer and closer to the Sun's hot self itself. Now, Mars also, it doesn't do the best in Libra, okay? Aries is the sign Sun gets exalted in, and it's Mars's Multirkon sign, right? So 7 houses away from that is Sun's debility sign, and opposite of Mars is Multirkon. So neither Sun or Mars do well in Libra, and there's a point in time where the moon is right in between Mars and Sun. Okay, so that is like the prime of the new moon. Now, also, when moon goes into Scorpio, Ketu is also present. So not only is moon debilitated, it's with the wonderful Ketu as well. Now, there's a lot we can learn from this and grow spiritually from this. However, it's important to kind of use this properly because, one, like I said, they're both not just a regular new moon or debilitation. They both have those features to it that I just described, and they also occur back to back. Okay, so let me give you guys a little bit of an analogy on what this could look like. So a new moon is basically like you're just walking through a desert. Okay, now the fact that it's being in Libra, which is Sun's debilitation sign, you could say, okay, during this walk in the desert, all of a sudden, when we started our walk, there's a sandstorm coming at us. Okay, so not only is it we have to take this hot walk through a desert, but now there's a sandstorm coming at us. Okay, so I got to walk through the sandstorm. The sand is all hot and hitting me and blowing hot wind in my face. Okay, that's got to be awesome. Okay, now the fact that Mars is also conjunct moon from behind, you could say that as, oh, you don't have any water for this trip. Okay, so during this long trip through the desert, not only do we have a sandstorm coming, but we don't have any water. Okay, and since I said also Mars doesn't like Libra as well, almost just as much as Sun doesn't like Libra, you could say, oh, not only did we not have our water, but we don't have any of our resources, right? So we don't have any water, food, things to, resources to take a rest with. We just got to do this walk through the desert with absolutely nothing, and there's a sandstorm with us. Okay, now that's that. Now, what could moon in debility represent? That's basically like we're hiking up or we're climbing a mountain. Okay, and the fact that it's with Ketu, this mountain happens to be very, very, very steep with little places to rest. Okay, so it's like, okay, right after our hot walk through the desert, no water, no resources, no nothing, sandstorm, we just fought all this for however long. Oh, right after that we got to climb this steep mountain. Okay, does that sound too appealing to anybody? Not really, right? But luckily this isn't an actual literal thing that's happening. This is just analogy that to help you relate to the situation, and from an astrological and spiritual and mental standpoint, since moon does represent mind, there are solutions to this, right? So first off, the moon in the new moon in Libra. Okay, so that Libra itself represents kind of our relations with other people. Okay, Mars and Sun are both hot, so when they are influencing the moon, you could feel very, very much frustrated and angry when it comes to your relations with other people. Now, this is a general transit video, so how specifically that's happening, who it's with, all these kind of variables, you're gonna have to look at your own chart, see what houses Mars rules, see what houses Sun rules, see what houses Moon rules, and kind of make your own conclusion. Okay, but in general, you will feel the transit of the new moon, by the way, just timing wise, for those of us in the US, it's kind of starting on the 3rd. The peak is, would say, on the 4th. On the 5th, it kind of dies down, but then it moves into Scorpio. So then even though that new moon aspect dies, the debilitation starts on the 5th. The debilitation peak, I think, would be on the 6th, and on the 7th, I think the debilitation aspect dies down as the moon is going to transit into Sagittarius, okay? Which I will touch on a little bit in this video also, since that kind of ties into how we want to kind of wrap things up. But back to the new moon. So like I said, it's between Mars and Sun, right? It's hot, it's angry. Now, what is the opposite of fire, right? Mars and Sun. Mars' Mutha Trikona is Aries and Sun rules Leo. They're both fire planets, right? So opposite of that is water. Okay, what do all the water signs in astrology represent, right? They represent moksha, right? So they all have to do with, for example, like Cancer, Scorpio, and especially Pisces. They all have to do with kind of, detachment or looking within, right? So you could notice, like I said, you might get frustrated during this new moon occurring on the 3rd or 4th. For those of us in the U.S., other parts of the world, just figure out exactly when the transits are occurring to you. But during the actual new moon part, whenever some frustrations could come, we basically want to go within and detach from our expectations, right? Why do we have expectations? Because we're relying too much on external things for happiness, right? Instead of going within and discovering true happiness is within ourselves, right? Also, when we live too much in the external, like Sun represents Sun, right? I mean, Sun represents Leo, which basically could mean like, Leo has a lot to do with like attention on us, right? So expectations have a lot to do with attention, right? A lot of expectations in general, they have to do with how other people are supporting our ego needs, right? So the more we detach from those expectations, the better this new moon's going to be. And this new moon is going to shine everything to light, okay, as far as what exactly our expectations are. Why? Because they're going to come out in the form of frustrations and anger, okay? So we need to look in, okay? There's a quote where it's, what you resist, persist, okay? Whenever you have anger or frustration, you don't want to resist it, right? Because then it will just end up bursting out another time, okay? We don't want to shove it down and suppress it. We want to acknowledge it. We want to feel it, but we also want to identify the root cause of this, okay? So are you angry at that person because you had this expectation? If so, you have to let that expectation go genuinely, okay? That's what this transit is teaching us. Now, right after that, the moon goes into debility. So when it goes into debility, okay, remember the analogy I gave with the desert and the mountain? So the desert, it's kind of like everything's hot, everything's, you're just like, man, why am I here? What is this? Like why is it like, okay, when the moon, right after that, when you have to climb the mountain, when the moon is in debility, you'll kind of feel like a little bit like, like when moon is in Scorpio, your mind could be all over the place. So you kind of feel like you have no control, especially because Ketu is there, right? If you are walking through the desert and you just want to quit for a few minutes, you theoretically can, right? You just, even though it's hot, you're still going to be in that hot weather. But if you want to just give your legs a break, even though there's a sandstorm and all this stuff, you can. However, if you're climbing a mountain and there's not really a rest area for another while, you can't just take a break, right? So you feel out of control. You feel powerless when moon is in Scorpio, okay? Especially with Ketu. So now here's where it could get interesting, okay? They occur back to back. So however you kind of got the ball rolling in Libra, it's kind of going to have a huge influence on how your moon behaves in Scorpio, okay? If you were kind of feeding that frustration and anger in when that new moon was there, when moon was in Libra with Mars and Sun, especially because Mercury was there, if you were kind of getting into a lot of fights, like you were just kind of going back and forth with people, barking back and forth, screaming back and forth, just constant arguing, maybe even over messaging or texting or like social media messaging or stuff like that, that energy is going to end up sticking around and manifesting when the moon goes into the debility of Scorpio with Ketu, right? So like if you're getting into like a lot of fights, arguments, stuff like that, when the moon goes into debility, it could feel like, oh man, like you were angry and frustrated when that new moon happened, or when moon was in Libra in general. And then when moon was in Scorpio, you could feel a lot more like anxiety related to all that. Okay, you could feel like uh like, oh, why is all this happening to me, etc., because you're living based off of what's happening on the outside. Okay, versus if you use this new moon properly, kind of incorporate some of the water aspects of the zodiac. So kind of detach, go within, like Scorpio and Pisces represents. Um, Instead of feeding so much into that fire energy, detach from people's expectations. Understand the root causes of your frustration and anger. Then when moon goes into debility, yeah, your mind will feel a little bit, turbulent. Your emotions might not be as stable, right? Because you had this big release of anger and frustration and stuff. That's natural, but you will realize, and you will have the awareness to understand that none of this is in my control anyways. Okay, I'm not the ultimate controller here. Okay, Bhagwan is, or the source is, or the higher consciousness, whatever you want to call it. Okay, so the energies you feed into Libra and the new moon are directly going to affect how moon behaves in debility. Okay, they occur back to back. Now, don't sweat it. If you made a mistake during the new moon or when moon was in Libra, don't panic. You can still utilize the moon in Scorpio, right? You can still realize that, hey, you know what? All that frustration and anger I gave into, what was I trying to prove here? Okay, because like I said, your mind is very unstable. Now, when it's unstable, it has a large opportunity to gain more awareness. Okay, that's the thing that people don't understand about, especially when moon's in debility. Okay, but not everyone knows how to handle it. But I'm kind of showing you a possibility of how to deal with that. Okay, so that's that, and it's a great time if you use this transit properly. When moon goes into Sagittarius with Venus, you can really start to make a lot of you can really start to get your mind really rolling in a more positive direction then, if you were able to kind of go through this this challenge of the new moon in Libra with Mars, and the moon being debilitated with Ketu. Okay, like I said, just don't try to suppress anything. Don't try to resist anything. Let everything flow naturally. Identify the root causes of it and just accept everything for what it is. Okay, like I said, go within, detach from the outside as much as possible, and understand that you're not the ultimate controller here. Okay, not everything revolves around yourself and your ego. Okay, what's happening here is all kind of in the creation of God. Okay, or whatever God's plan is, you can say. Okay, so that's it. Thank you guys for watching this video, and until next time, I'll see you later. Thank you very much.